This is Elke's on the Island, a podcast for the Navigator VIU Student Press. In this edition, I talk to students and faculty at VIU about ratemyprofessors.com. It's the start of a new semester. If you're anything like me, you've got tabs upon tabs opened on your computer, linking to the campus bookstore, your student record, D2L, travel itineraries, and that pair of shoes you've been waiting for to go on a back-to-school sale. Within the glorious mix of tabs is a website which you can't even remember where you first heard of, ratemyprofessors.com. Rate My Professors, created in 1999 by an American software engineer, is a platform that allows anonymous users to rate and review their professors. That way, potential students can get a feel for what to expect when enrolled in a class. The majority of students and faculty are aware of the site's existence, but it's never really talked about between the two. Today, I'm changing that. I met with 3 current VIU students who are all aware of Rate My Professor's existence. First, here's Cynthia deConinckSmith, a 6th-year student at VIU majoring in creative writing and journalism. She told me how she uses it.
Honestly, I use it to kind of double check how I'm feeling about professors. There are instances where I have been in classes with some professors and I wasn't feeling it and I started to doubt myself and I'm like, okay, well, everyone else seems to be doing fine. Maybe it's just me.
Liv Loewen, who's in her 4th year at VIU with a major in history and a minor in gender studies, and Meetika Kher, who's been a student for 10 years but is in her 2nd year at VIU's post-Beck program in education, expressed their passion for Rate My Professors.
That's my religion.
Yeah, I love Rate My Professor. I scroll. It's one of my hobbies, actually, scrolling on there.
Loewen and Kher shared why and when they open Rate My Professors to read reviews.
I use it mostly before, I would say, and it doesn't always determine, what classes I take, but I do like to at least have a bit of an idea of what I'm getting into, even if I can't map out my courses around it, and I don't anyways, but it's more just to get a sense of okay, what can I expect? How is this going to go?
It's mostly just to understand, what to anticipate when I'm going into a class and what the professors are like. Especially, I want to learn about them so I can kind of notice it going into it as someone that wants to be a teacher. So I can understand kind of what are the things that students look for.
The students raise the point that in certain programs, courses are required, meaning students don't actually get to choose which courses they are enrolled in. But deConinckSmith told me how Rate My Professors is good for emotional prep.
I don't think there's been any professors that it's I'm going into their class and it's tarnished how I feel about them at all, but it's definitely let me brace myself a little bit. I feel like I'm in that weird majority of I experience a lot of what the Rate My Professor scale is telling me. So it's, if the majority don't like them on there, I tend to not like them and have those bad experiences. And, other way around. And I don't think it's contributed by Rate My Professor, but I do think it's a nice tool to have to, prepare me for those mandatory classes.
So all 3 of the students admitted they refer to Rate My Professors before and during the semester. I wondered, though, if they had ever participated and wrote reviews of professors themselves.
Have you guys ever written reviews at all?
In undergrad, I didn't write them for my VIU profs, but maybe I should.
I have not written a review because I will admit, a little bit scared to do that, even though I know it's all anonymous. Also, I love being a bystander. I like watching. I like seeing, being oh, okay. Fly on the wall, that's me.
I have never written them, and I always thought maybe once I graduate I will. I know it's anonymous, but I still just feel bad, being honest, because I think of it a little as a Google review, because when I'm reading them, a lot of them are negative, and I think it's the same with reviews of anything. People are often, I think, moved to review things when they've had a bad experience, and it's not as common to have a great experience and then go and write a review. It's just, I don't think it's as common. So the only profs that I would like to write a review for are generally the terrible ones. That's what inspires me, and I'm sure if I actually sat down, I would write reviews for a bunch of them and the good ones too. But I don't know. There's something about having a really bad experience that you just feel the need to like get out of your system, you know?
Personally speaking, I've only ever written one review for a professor, a positive one. I remember writing it because I felt like the prof had too many bad reviews and I genuinely liked them, so I needed to even it out. Generally, I tend to feel more moved to write positive reviews and want to move on quick after a bad experience. Water off a duck's back in my mind. Loewen and deConinckSmith then shared some reviews they had come across that stuck out to them. deConinckSmith starts us off strong with her discovery of a potential expression of romantic love on ratemyprofessors.com.
I was dating a girl and her dad was a professor at the university.
Oh.
So what do? You look at the Rate My Professor score. And he had an amazing score. But there was one review and it was a glowing review, but it said, "I love Todd. The material on the test was always covered in class. He was funny and interesting, very helpful in and out of class. I would definitely take another class of his. A+ professor, 11 out of 10, perfect cinnamon bun." That was she'd never seen that review either.
Yeah.
And I pulled that up and I was like, look at the review someone left on your father.
Yeah.
Flabbergasted.
Somebody had a crush on that professor.
Absolutely.
Loewen then shared a time where she was pleasantly surprised about a poorly rated history prof.
I had a prof last year and I think it was a mistake looking up his reviews because they were like atrocious. So I screenshotted one that I remember reading because I was like, oh my God.
But you read it before the course?
I read it before the course, yeah. And
Okay.
it was written in all caps. This person said, "Do not by any means take a class with this prof, 4 exclamation points. He is the worst professor I've had in all of my 4 years of uni. Expects you to have a 10-page paper for a small discussion. And he assigns multiple hard things. He also will email to chastise." So I read that and I was like, oh, that sounds rough. I actually will say this is one of my favorite courses I was in. And I did complete it a little differently because I was jumping back into in-person courses and I was like struggling with anxiety a lot. And this prof was willing to do like a one-on-one, like directed study kind of vibe. And so I guess that could be a different experience than in person for sure. But I was so shocked because that review and all of his reviews made me pretty stressed to like approach him and say that like I was struggling because I was like, oh, he sounds like a terrible person. But he was like one of the kindest professors I've ever had. He was like super passionate about what he taught. And it was like probably the hardest course I've ever done. Like there were multiple hard assignments, like this person said, like it was hard. But yeah, I don't know. I think the history program, the reviews can be scary, but it comes down to also how much effort you put in. I think I always take them a bit with a grain of salt because I'm like, I don't know if this is written by a student who doesn't care or who actually tried hard. So that's part of the issue too.
Then deConinckSmith mentioned some brief reviews she found humor in.
So one of my favorite professors, Susan Juby, she has an amazing Rate My Professor score, like a 4.5, but she has 2 bad reviews on it. One of them I find very funny because all it says is, "Just don't." That's it. That's the review. 1 star. And another one saying how she's horrible, she's cranky, just, and it's more so I'll read those for professors that I like, and I'm like,
So naturally, I asked creative writing professor Susan Juby about these poor reviews, and here's what she had to say.
This was written in 2019, so a little bit ago. They rated you 1 out of 5, and the only words they left was "just don't." How does that make you feel?
Do you want me to be honest?
I do.
Because I know exactly who wrote that review. And I know why.
Really?
Yeah, totally. Because the review, I think, might have come in during a class. Like, I think that, yeah, we'd had an interaction over something that was happening that I had to speak out about. And instead of following what I'd asked, and just had to express how they were feeling about the interaction that we just had.
Wow, because that made them feel better about whatever was
I
going on.
guess, I have, if it was me, I would have waited till the class was over. I do not. If you give me a 1 star, you want to rate my professor, I promise it will not affect your mark.
Okay, your next poor review. One star, unfortunately. This is again back in 2019, so I even think it might be the same date. No, it's not the same date as the last one, but it's within the semester.
Uh-huh.
She chooses bad stories, for example, and tends not to give clear instructions. She's also constantly cranky in class. Thoughts?
Well, I have to tell you, I also know who that student was. And I know exactly why those words were chosen. Because we'd had an incident in the class where something hadn't been done and there was an expectation because I'm always forcing everyone to do everything, and it hadn't happened, and the student was really unhappy about that there was a grade associated with the thing, and so that was the response. Yeah, so sorry, but what are you going to do? It was a very unpleasant interaction. And so I guess that's how the person was letting off steam. I'm a person like any other person.
Yeah.
I have my good days and my bad days. Apparently, I occasionally bring the crank to class, and I'm sorry about that. I try not to do that. I know that let's just put this in general terms. I have received bad reviews, I think, from students who have continued to take classes with me, which is an interesting dynamic. And so I try not to, that's okay. People need to let off a little steam. There are worse ways that could happen, I think, than going on Rate My Professor and giving me the old 1 star. And I really try not to constantly choose bad stories. I don't think, what is a really awful story that we could spend our time on? That's not my goal, but yeah.
Okay, so let's back it up a bit. Susan Juby is familiar with Rate My Professors, and she said she checks her reviews every 1 to 2 years to make sure there's nothing to inform counsel about. But Juby, who is a working writer and has many published books, said Rate My Professor is nothing compared to book reviews posted to Goodreads, a platform by Amazon which allows people to read, rate, and review books just as you can on Rate My Professor for teachers.
If you're a writer and you have had to navigate like the Goodreads world and before it, Amazon reviews, that's, just stabby. So this is no problem. So yeah, I know it exists. I try not to pay much attention to it because it feels like a place for students to go and either vent or communicate to one another about, which classes and teachers they might like to have. Like, I think it has a valuable, it serves a valuable purpose for the self-esteem purposes of an instructor, maybe a little bit problematic.
Given the fact that Professor Juby had an inkling of which students left her poor reviews, she made sure to assure us that you should not be afraid to leave your honest opinion. To wrap up my interview with Susan Juby, I asked her a cheeky little question. Here it is.
If there was a Rate My Students forum, would you be participating in it?
No, I would not. In my mind, there might be a tiny bit of a Rate My Student. But no, I would not. Classes have to be a safe space for students, and students are just like professors, but a lot of them are going through, like, even students who have not enjoyed what I had to offer. They're going through lots of different things. You come to class you're sick, you're under pressure, you have a million things going on. And so, I think the job of the instructor is to maintain a classroom where people can succeed even if they're not feeling 100%, right? If things in their life aren't going well, if they're having, mental health challenges or whatever. And that's a demanding thing. So, and students, I don't like the commercial idea that universities are a business and we're trying to give the consumer what they want. I think it goes deeper than that. But at the same time, like, we're supposed to be there for the students. So no, I would not do that because it would be, I think, the critical mindset. Like, I want to see every student succeed in, like, inside their abilities, right? So I rate my student would really work against the openness and the affirming space that we're trying to create in all the creative writing classes. But I have occasionally thought in my mind there might be a little website like that sometimes when I'm having my bad days.
Finally, I spoke with Professor Horsburgh. Professor Horsburgh is going into her 8th year at VIU as a professor in the English department. One of the classes she teaches is English 115, which is one of the courses that is an option for the English requirement at VIU, so it attracts lots of students from different faculties. In our interview, Horsburgh mentioned Rate My Professor's since-abandoned feature of the chili pepper, a scale used by the public to rate the professor's looks. I do actually remember this feature. My high school teachers had Rate My Professor pages for some reason, and, high school students got a little feisty with it. But yeah, they got rid of that feature, so it's not a thing anymore. On the other hand, Professor Horsburgh said she used to visit the website and consult her reviews. However, these days she says ignorance is bliss when it comes to the website. Here's why.
And one of the reasons I don't look at it is because it doesn't do me any good. It is a tool by students for students. It doesn't provide me with any kind of formative feedback on my teaching practice, right? Some of the elements that students will be talking about is important to other students and not so much my teaching practice or my teaching philosophy. And so I found that it was doing me a disservice to go on. And because at the end of the day, it's not for me, it's for students and students who are looking to maybe take a course with me.
Finally, Professor Horsburgh offered some alternatives to students looking for a place to rant on Rate My Professors.
Instead, I would say, if you want to create real change, like in that instructor's teaching practice, first step is to go talk to that professor and see if the worries or the barriers that you're facing, if changes can happen. And if you feel like you haven't maybe gotten a satisfactory response from the instructor, you can always go to the department, but start with the instructor, right? Take the time to go to their student hours, their office hours, have a chat with them. Don't talk into the void of Rate My Professor, because like people like me, I'm not looking at it. So yeah, it's a tool for other students. Think of it that way.
And there you have it, students and faculty's views on ratemyprofessors.com. To end us off, here's Cynthia deConinckSmith's final take on Rate My Professor as a tool.
I think I do want to mention that Rate My Professor shouldn't be as much of a taboo topic as I feel like it is around, especially like university locations. As much as it's like, oh, I can drag my least favorite professor, I do see it as a tool that is handy, especially like even for people that leave like, I want to say moderate reviews to like very good reviews, because even the bad reviews, telling you how much schoolwork there actually is, how they felt they could handle that course load, what they liked, what they didn't like. I find all of that is really good, either so that you can choose to take that course or so that you know what to expect if you have to take that course. Yeah, I just feel like it is an important resource that we shouldn't be scared to talk about, even if we might not have the nicest things to say about our professors on there.
This has been an audio story for the Navigator VIU Student Press. I'm Elke Sorensen, and I'll catch you in the next issue.